With over 100 features, the Notion Enhancer is one of the most powerful Notion add-ons that you can get to customize your Notion desktop app. And in this video series, I'm going to be walking you through every single one of these options so that you can decide which one is best suited for your needs. And trust me when I say this, but you'll be kicking yourself for not using the Notion Enhancer earlier because there are some absolute gems in here. And we're starting right now. So the first thing I want you to do is open up a web browser. Then I want you to search for Notion Enhancer. And then we're going to go onto the github.com page for the Notion Enhancer, which is this very first link. So let's go ahead and click on this. Once you're on this page, this is where you'll find all of the details you need to be able to install the Notion Enhancer, as well as any ongoing issues with the Enhancer as well. You'll also find a list of all the contributors. At the moment, there's about 8. And you can see how much they contribute to the add-on itself. And as you can see, the main developer is Dracula, who has made most of the changes to the Notion Enhancer. Now let's go back into the code tab. If we scroll down, you'll see a quick description of what the Notion Enhancer is, but you'll also see a section called installation. So this is the bit that we're going to use to be able to install the Notion Enhancer. So the very first thing we need to do is install a program called node.js. It's very easy to do, so all you need to do is go ahead and click this link. It should open up this page and then it'll give you a couple of options. So depending on the operating system that you have on your PC, laptop, or MacBook, you can just simply go ahead and select whichever one you want. So I'm currently using a Windows machine, so I'm going to go ahead and click on this. That's going to open up this window, which is going to allow me to be able to download the Node.js file. So I'm going to go ahead and click this save. So if you open up your downloads section within your file explorer, you should see this executable. So let's go ahead and double click this. Now we're going to go through the process of installing the Node.js. Let's go ahead and click next. Brilliant, so now it looks like it's successfully finished installing the Node.js installer. Let's go ahead and click finish. So that's the first step of the installation complete. Now let's head back into our GitHub page. So the next thing we need to do is scroll a bit further down and then you'll come across this section over here. Now again, depending on the system that you have, you need to follow these instructions. In my case, because I'm using Windows 10, all I need to do is open up a command prompt and simply copy paste this particular command in there. So the way you do that is simply go into your search bar and then type in cmd or command prompt, and this is what we're looking for. As soon as you've clicked on that, it should open up this window. And now what we're going to do is simply copy and paste this command in there. And we press enter. And there you go. We have now successfully installed the Notion Enhancer. So that completes all the steps that you need to take to be able to install the Notion Enhancer onto your PC, laptop. So now let's jump into our Notion desktop app and see this add-on in action. So on my desktop, I'm going to double click my Notion app icon. So the first time you open up your Notion desktop app, you might find that the top toolbar or the menu bar has now changed or disappeared in this case. And that's because one of the default features when you do install the Notion Enhancer is for the integrated toolbar option to be pre-selected. And what it effectively does is it minimizes the top toolbar and it condenses it into these 3 options. You can obviously turn this off if you want to be able to have the original toolbar back in place, but this is just something to be aware of just in case you do open up your desktop app and are a little bit confused as to what's actually happened. Right, so now let's go ahead and look at some of the other features within the Notion Enhancer. The way we actually access the Notion Enhancer isn't through the actual desktop app itself directly. What you need to do is go to your icon tray at the bottom of your screen and then click on the show hidden icons, and what you'll find is that there is a new icon within this tray, and this is the Notion Enhancer icon. Now, if you actually left click on this, you'll see that the Notion app gets minimized, and if you press it again, it will open up again. So that's just something to be aware of because that's one of the features that you get as part of the Notion Enhancer. But if you want to be able to customize it further, all we need to do is right click on the icon and then you'll have this small menu appear. And there's a couple of things you can do in here. One is you can go to the original GitHub page, you can go to the Discord page for this Notion Enhancer. You can also report a bug. So if you do find that there's something wrong wrong with your Notion Enhancer, you can click on this link and be able to report that. You can also put forward your ideas about how to actually improve the Notion Enhancer as well. And then you can also open up a new window, and then you can also relaunch the app and quit the app as well. But having said all of that, the main menu item that you really want to be able to access is the Enhancements menu. And you can access this one of two ways. One is by simply clicking on this Enhancements over here, or you can use a shortcut, which is just the Alt-E when you do have the Notion desktop app open. So I'm just going to go ahead and click this now. So you should now have a small window that's now appeared, and this is the Notion Enhancer settings menu. You can obviously move this around. You can also change the size of this window if you want, and you can just have it open alongside your Notion desktop app. You can obviously maximize this as well. So before I go through all of the different features that are available as part of the Notion Enhancer, and there is a lot of customizable options in here actually, I'm going to give you a brief overview of the main sections of the add-on, just so that you're aware, and it helps you navigate through all of the different sections as well. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm just going to maximize this screen just so that we can see different elements. So the first thing you'll notice is that on the very top you have this search bar. And once you get familiar with all of the different features of the enhancer, you don't actually have to scroll all the way down to find that particular feature. So let's say you wanted to be able to see snappy transitions. What you can simply do is come up here and type in snappy transitions. And as you can see, it's now taken us to the tweaks section. And within the tweaks section, we can see snappy transitions. So that's a very quick way of navigating straight to the particular feature that you're interested in either turning on or turning off. So the next thing you'll notice is that there are these filtered hashtags or these groupings that you can actually go ahead and either select or deselect depending on which one you want to be able to look at. So for instance, as part of the Notion Enhancer window, most of the features of this add-on are actually grouped up into various sections that are separated by these bold headings. So tabs, always on top, bracketed links, bypass preview. And each of these sections actually has a hashtag category next to them. For instance, this tabs one is hashtagged under core and also as an extension. And these are the hashtags that you'll see on top over here. So that's the core one and that's the extension one. So each of the developers of these various sections have actually hashtagged their sections. So it's easier for you to be able to navigate and find those depending on those groupings or categories. Now the one that I've actually deselected is the one called enabled, and then there's another one here called disabled. So the fact that I've deselected enabled, what you'll see is on the right hand side, all of the features within the add-on that is currently not enabled has now been filtered, and I am seeing all of those features on the right hand side. So like I said, this is a quick way to actually again navigate to the different features. So the next thing to be aware of is that we have these two options over here called configure and reorder. If I actually clicked on these, what you'll find is at the moment we're in the configure tab, which basically means that we can go ahead and toggle any of these features on and off. Or if I go ahead and click reorder, what you'll find is that it collapses or minimizes all of the features within each of the groups, and then it allows you to be able to drag and drop, reorder the sequence of how these features are displayed within the enhancer. This is obviously quite helpful if you want to be able to just change these things around and move all of the ones that you actually use further up in the menu, so it's quicker and easier for you to access as opposed to the default ordering that they come in. And whilst I'm in this reorder menu, let me just quickly scroll down to show you all the various different feature sections that we have. So if I scroll down, as you can see, there are so many different customizable options that will supercharge your Notion and it will take it to the next level. And in fact, I've actually counted these and there are 34 individual sections at the moment that are part of the Notion Enhancer. And don't forget, within each of these sections, you actually have different options. So for instance, if I now go into the configure tab, you can see that as part of the Notion Enhancer core, you don't just have the one toggle feature, you actually have a whole host of things that you can customize. If you put those together, that is a lot of customizable options that you can go through to try and really make sure that your Notion desktop app is looking and feeling and has got the functionality that you really want. So what I'm now going to do is go through each of these sections and show you some of the main features one by one, so you can get a feel for what each of the features does to your Notion desktop app, so you can pick and choose which ones you actually want to be able to apply as part of your Notion setup. So now I'm going to walk you through all of the customizable options that are featured under the Notion Enhancer core section. So the first option is auto-resolve theme conflicts. Now I like to have this toggled on, and if we look at the description of what this is for, it's basically saying that if there's a theme that we've enabled on our Notion desktop app, and if there are any other themes of the same mode, i.e. light or dark, they'll be disabled. So I think this is good to have on anyway, because you never really know whether there's a conflict and that's what's causing issues with either your Notion Enhancer or your desktop app. So I think by default, probably just worth having this one turned on. The second option is hide app on open. By default, this is turned off. Now, what this is basically saying is that the app can be made visible by clicking the tray icon or using the hotkey. So let me just show you that. So at the moment, if you look down below, we can see the Notion app icon down here, and we can see the Notion Enhancer icon in the icon tray as well. So if I go ahead and toggle this, so you'll see straight away that we've got this message which has appeared on the top part of the window of the Notion Enhancer. So this happens every single time you change a setting within your Notion Enhancer. For some reason, for the settings to be applied, we actually have to relaunch the Notion desktop app for those changes to take effect. So let's go ahead and do that. All you have to do is just click on this link and it will just do that for you. So instead of relaunching the app, I think it's launched it in the background. So let me just go ahead and double click this. So I think what this feature does is that when you do click on the default icon that comes with the app itself, when you double click it, it doesn't actually open up the app itself. So the way that you can now open up the app is only by going down into the icon tray and clicking on the Notion Enhancer icon. So if I click that, as you can see, the app has now opened up. And you can also see that the icon on the toolbar has now appeared as well. So that's what that particular feature does. Let's go ahead and open up the Notion Enhancer again. And this time around, instead of clicking on the icon and then right clicking and going into enhancements, I'm just simply going to use the keyboard shortcut, which is the Alt-E. And there you go. It's opened up the Notion Enhancer window, and this is the first section that we were going through. So that's what this feature does. Right, so the next setting we're going to go through is Auto Maximize Windows. So this again by default is turned off, and if we look at the description, so what this does is effectively whenever there's a window that's hidden or is unhidden or is created, it will be maximized. So let me just quickly demonstrate to you what it does at the moment before the feature is turned on, and then we'll turn it on and then we'll see what the difference is. So what that means is that if we actually minimized our Notion desktop app window and we went ahead and closed this and then we try to open up the app again, you'll see that it still opens it up in this minimized view. But if we were to actually toggle the menu in the Notion Enhancers to always auto maximize the windows, and we clicked on this and turned it on and then relaunched the app, so what you'll see is that when it's relaunched the app, it's actually maximized my window instead of opening it up as a smaller window. And let me just go ahead and demonstrate that again. So if I was to minimize this window and if I close this and I clicked on my Notion Enhancer icon, you can see that it's opened it up in a maximized view. I actually find this feature quite useful because most of the time when you do open up your Notion desktop app, you actually do want to see the full window as opposed to the smaller window that sometimes opens up if you've actually got that view before you close the app. So the next feature is close window to the tray, and this by default when you install the Notion Enhancer is actually toggled on. And what this basically means is that when we actually go ahead and press the close button or the cross button on the top right hand corner of your desktop app, instead of actually closing the app, all it does is actually minimize the window within the icon tray. So let me just quickly show you what that means. So if I go ahead and close this, so it looks like my Notion app has actually closed because I can't actually see the icon for Notion within the opened applications tab in the toolbar. But if I actually go to my task manager, and if I scroll down into background processes, you'll notice two things. You'll notice that the Notion Enhancer background process is still working. That means the Enhancer is active. And if we scroll down, you'll see that the Notion desktop app icon is also still active, which means that the Enhancer is stopping this process from completely closing. So again, I'm not really sure in which particular scenario you'd actually want to be able to use this feature, but it is there if you do want to be able to use it. The next feature we're going to go through is the integrated title bar, and this again by default is turned on. So what this option basically does is that it completely removes the default title bar at the top of your desktop app and replaces it with this integrated menu bar, which effectively only gives you the option to minimize, maximize, and then close the app. So you don't actually get the options that you see by default on the top title bar. Aesthetically, it does look a little bit more cleaner and slicker. So if you're going for that sort of minimalist title bar view, then I'd recommend that you actually keep this toggled on. So the next option is called Tiling Window Manager Mode. And this by default is turned off. And when you look at the description, it basically says that it will completely remove the close, minimize, and maximize buttons on the top right hand corner. So if you use this option in combination with the integrated toolbar or the title bar, you'll effectively have no way to actually make any of the changes that you're able to do with these top title bars. I wouldn't necessarily recommend you actually using this particular option, but let me just quickly show you what I mean, right? So if you actually go ahead and click this and we have to relaunch the app, you can see that it is now completely removed the minimize, maximize, and the cross on the top right hand corner. And because this is also an integrated title bar, we also don't have any features on the top left hand corner either. So it's created this really focused view without giving us that ability to really close the app using any of the traditional ways that we would normally use to actually close the app using the title bar. And if we look at the description within the Notion Enhancer, the developer themselves actually recommend that if we don't actually understand the real reason for doing this, we shouldn't actually use this particular feature. So if you have a particular need to be able to use this feature, then please go ahead and use this. But I personally don't really use this feature because it does restrict you in certain ways as to how you can actually interact with the desktop app. So I'm going to go ahead and untoggle this. So the next feature is the window display hotkey. Now all this is just a simple shortcut on your keyboard that allows you to be able to just close the app and then open the app by simply using this particular combination. You can actually change this particular shortcut to whatever you want it to be. I actually prefer to keep it as a Control-Shift-A so I don't accidentally end up closing my Notion app. So all you have to do is on your keyboard press the Control-Shift and A, and as you can see it will completely close your Notion app. And if you go ahead and just click on that again, you'll see that it's opened up your Notion app. So it's a very quick way of actually opening and closing the Notion app. I do actually use this from time to time because it does save you time, especially if you're quite a heavy user of Notion. The next option is the Open Enhancements menu hotkey. So like I mentioned earlier, this is the keyboard combination that you can use to quickly open up this Notion Enhancer window. So by default, it's set to Alt-E. So if I was to actually go ahead and click that, you can see that it's closed my Notion Enhancer window. And if I go ahead and click Alt-E again, it will open up my Notion Enhancer window. Again, this is really useful. I definitely recommend that you set this to whatever you think is the most easiest and quickest thing for you to use. I actually think Alt-E is quite a good combination, and it definitely saves time because it means that you don't have to keep going into the icon tray and then right clicking on the icon just to be able to click on the Enhancements menu to open up this window. So it definitely saves you a lot of time. So 100% recommend using this particular shortcut as well. So the last feature within the Notion Enhancer core section is the default page ID or URL. So the purpose of this feature is to open up a specific page from your Notion setup every time you open up a new tab or window that isn't already opening up into a Notion page. Now, when I was testing out this particular feature, I was a little bit unclear as to what new window we would normally open up that would lead to this particular feature being used. However, I did find that it was very effective when you used it in combination with the next section, which is the tabs section. So before I demonstrate to you how we use the tab section alongside this particular feature, what we need to do is be able to paste a link in here of the page that we want the Notion Enhancer to open every time we have a new tab or a window opening up within the Notion desktop app. So let's just go ahead and get a link to one of the pages from our Notion setup. Now the reason why you'd want to do that is, let's say you have a landing page or a home page, much like this one that I've got over here, and every time you open up a new window, you want the Notion desktop app to actually open up on that landing page, as opposed to any other page that you were previously on before you close your Notion desktop app. So let's say I want this particular page to be showing up every single time I open up a new window or a new tab. All I need to do is go to the top right hand corner, click on the three dots, and then you'll scroll down until you see the copy link. Once you've selected that, I want you to come back into your Notion Enhancer, and then I want you to paste this link in this feature, and that's it. And now let's go into the next section, which is the tab section, so I can demonstrate how the tab section works and also how this particular feature works in combination with the tab section. So in order to use the tab section, all we have to do is simply click on the toggle here, as to have multiple Notion pages open in a single window. And there's a couple of features that we can customize within this section. The first one is if we have multiple tabs open within the Notion app, we can set up a couple of keyboard shortcuts that will help us navigate through those pages. So for instance, if we wanted to go from one tab to the other, we can select this particular function, so the Alt function, in combination with numbers 1, 2, and 3, and so on and so forth. Or we can click on the drop down and then we can select any one of these combinations that we want to be able to use. The second feature is the new tab key binding. So you can simply click on Control and T and it will open up a new tab for you. And similarly, you can press Control W and it will close the last tab you were on. So now that we've toggled this on, let's go back and restart the Notion desktop app and see this particular feature in action. So as you can see, a couple of things have happened straight away. We've now got this Notion Enhancer icon on the top left-hand corner. We've also got this tab, which is now open. So our default screen has now opened up as the first tab, and we've got this plus sign. And if we clicked on that, it would open up a second tab within our Notion desktop app. And this particular tab is defaulting to the page that we set up for any new tab to open up into. And we can actually go ahead and keep on adding more and more tabs. So this again is a really powerful productivity feature of the Notion Enhancer, because a lot of the times you can use a navigation menu on the left hand side, but sometimes it's a little bit restricted because you kind of want to go into some of the sub pages and then being able to sort of click on those, and that takes a little bit longer. But if you have the tabs open for all of the key pages that you want to be working on at that moment in time, it's so much easier just to be able to navigate through those different pages if you just have it open in this sort of web browser type tab format, and you can simply just very quickly flick through these pages, right? So this is a completely different page, and then if I clicked on the other tab, and let's open up the calendar view in this one, and again I can use some of my keyboard shortcuts. So for instance, I can click Alt and then 1, 2, 3, and I can navigate through all of the tabs very quickly just using my keyboard shortcut. Again, if I wanted to be able to add a new tab, and I simply go ahead and use the shortcut Control T. As you can see, it's opened up a new tab. If I wanted to close that tab, I could simply go ahead and do Control W. As you can see, it's closed that particular tab that I had selected at the moment in time. So let's open up our Notion Enhancer window again. So hopefully you can now see how this default page URL is working, because every time we're opening up a new tab, it is taking us straight to this page. So now I'm just going to remove this link, and then I'm going to open up the tab just to demonstrate what window opens up when we have a new tab when this default URL isn't selected. So let's delete this. Now let's go into the Notion and let's open up a new tab. So as you can see, when we don't have the default URL set to a particular page, every new tab that you open up will be the same page as the one that you were on previously. So again, it just depends on your personal preference as to what you actually prefer. Let's now go through the tweaks section of the Notion Enhancer. So the main things that we can tweak in this are the common style and the layout changes. So the very first one is the height of the frameless drag area. So this is basically the rectangle that's added at the top of the window when we have the integrated title bar mode selected. And you can see that the height at the moment is about 15. It's basically talking about this particular area at the top. Let me just go ahead and quickly change this to, let's say, 50, and let's see what that does. So as you can see, the height at the top is now increased to 50. Again, it's down to your personal preference as to what you like, but I actually preferred it to be the 15 as it was. So the next feature we can tweak is basically being able to set the width at which the columns within your Notion setup will actually become wrapped. So if I look at these columns in the background here, you can see that at a certain distance they actually become wrapped, and then I can align them as different columns within my page in Notion. If I go ahead and make this 6000, you'll see that the columns within my page are no longer columns, and that's because they're not being wrapped. Because I've increased the size to 6000 pixels, that basically means that these columns are no longer being wrapped around, and I can't actually create that column width. If I go ahead and change this to just being 6 pixels, you can see that it's gone back to my setting effectively. Again, you can play around with this depending on how you want your Notion page to look. For me personally, I just leave it as being the 600 because I do actually want the column features to be showing up on my pages, and this width seems to be just enough. So the next feature is integrated scroll bars. So by default this is toggled on. So it's basically a feature that we can turn on that allows the scroll bars to fit a little bit better within the Notion user interface instead of the default ones. So what this basically means is that your scroll bars within your Notion app will appear exactly how you can see it appearing within the Notion Enhancer, which is basically a lot thinner, and also you can see it's got these rounded edges as well. Let me just turn this off just so you can see the difference. So just keep an eye on these on this main scroll bar within the Notion app. So at the moment you can see it's got a round edge, and it's also a lot thinner. So let me just go ahead and turn this off. So there you go. You can see if I actually open up the Notion Enhancer, you can see the difference. So this is the Notion Enhanced integrated scroll bar. You can see it's rounder, whereas the default one is got this straight edge and it's a lot thicker as well. So again, it's down to your personal preference as to what you want to see. I actually quite like the Notion Enhancer one because it's a little bit smoother. It gives it a much more cleaner user interface. Let's just have a look at a table as well to see if we can spot a difference within the horizontal scroll bar as well. So here you can see an example of a horizontal scroll bar. So again, you can see it's got these straight edges and it's a lot thicker. And turn on the integrated scroll bar and see what changes are, how this changes the horizontal scroll bar. And there you go. You can see exactly like the vertical scroll bar, the horizontal one is a lot thinner and it's also a lot smoother as well around the edges. So it just fits in just a little bit better. Visually, it just looks a lot more appealing, I think. So the next feature is actually having snappy transitions. Now, I don't actually know what this means. So if you've managed to figure out what difference this particular feature makes, then please let me know in the comments below, because I'd love to find out what the actual usefulness of this particular feature is. By default, this is actually turned on. So if there is a change being made, I couldn't actually figure out what that particular feature was. But if someone's gone through the effort of actually developing this, then I'm sure there's a good use for this. So the next feature I'm going to go through is the thicker bold text. By default, this is turned off, but let me just quickly show you what the difference is when you turn this on. So I'm just going to go ahead and make a particular text bold without turning this on, and then I'm going to turn it on to see what the difference is. So let's say we want to be able to make this particular text bold. So we'll go ahead and click this. It obviously makes the text bolder, but it's not as thick as when we turn on the feature from the Notion Enhancer. So let's go ahead and toggle this on now, and as we always have to do, let's go ahead and relaunch the app, but just keep an eye on this text over here. And there you go. As you can see, the same bold text is a lot more thicker now, and it's a lot more prominent on the page. I actually prefer this feature because it does make the text stand out a lot more. So I personally like to keep this particular one turned on. The next feature is having a more readable line spacing. Again, by default, this is turned off. What this basically means is that the gap between the paragraphs and the lines is going to be almost twice as wide. Let's turn this on and relaunch the app. So as you can see here, it just makes reading large amounts of text a lot easier on the eyes. So I personally like to keep this toggled on. It just gives your eyes a little bit more breathing space when you are actually reading through line after line of text. The next feature is quite self-explanatory, so it's just being able to hide the help button. By default, it's turned off. What this basically means is that when you turn this on and you relaunch the app, it will actually remove the help button on the bottom right. So let's go ahead and see that in action. And there you go. As you can see, there is no longer that question mark on the bottom right hand corner. The next feature is condensed bullet points. Let's say that we've got these two paragraphs and I'm going to turn those into bullet points. And let's go ahead and toggle this. And there you go. As you can see, it is really condensed the two bullet points together. There is hardly any space between them. So the next feature is scroll database toolbars. So a bit like the snappy transitions, I couldn't actually see what difference these were making within my Notion app. If you've managed to figure out what difference turning this particular feature on and off does, then please do let me know in the comments below. So the next section is bracketed links. So let me just quickly show you what that means. Essentially, it creates these brackets around any text that has a link or a hyperlink attached to it. So by default, this is turned off. So let's say we want to highlight the word Warren Buffett and we want to put a link to it. So as you can see, the link or any text that has a link associated to it, you can see that it gets underlined like this. So you can see that it's got a link associated to it. Let's go ahead and turn on this particular feature in the Notion Enhancer. And there you go. As you can see, instead of the word Warren Buffett being underlined, it's actually got these double brackets, both at the end and at the start of the word. Similarly, you can see that we had another link down here next to the number 1, and that's also been sort of bracketed like that. So the next feature is the always on top feature. Again, this is quite self-explanatory, but let me just quickly go ahead and demonstrate what this is. So it effectively creates an arrow or a button to show the Notion window on top of any other windows, even if it's not in focus. Let's say I've got this window over here, and as you can see, the Notion window is in the background. Let me just minimize that. So you can see if I clicked on the other link, the Notion app has now gone into the background. Now, if I actually turn on the feature, let's see what it does. So once you've turned that feature on, you'll notice an arrow has appeared on the top right hand corner. So by default, the arrow is actually pointing down. What that basically means is that this particular feature, even though it's now available, it's not actually turned on. So if I had another window, let's say this particular article, you can see that it's still able to be displayed on top of the Notion desktop app. Let me just minimize the desktop app just so you can see a bit of difference. If I clicked on this article within my Firefox web browser, you can see that the Notion app has gone into the background. As you would expect, whichever one you clicked into comes on top. Now, if I actually clicked on this arrow, and when the arrow is pointing up, that basically means that regardless of which other app I actually click on, the Notion app will stay on top of any other app in the background. So if I clicked on this now, you can see that even though I have selected this particular article, the Notion app remains on top of the window. So there's no way that I can actually move this window in front of the Notion app because we've got this feature turned on. You can see that not only has the arrow appeared on our Notion desktop app, it's also appeared on the Notion Enhancer window as well. And sometimes you want to be able to change different features within the Notion Enhancer on the fly, and it can get a bit annoying that if you're using your Notion app and you want to constantly be able to use the Notion Enhancer, you don't have to keep flicking through the different apps. You could simply minimize this and move it to the left hand side and actually continue to use your Notion app. If I actually toggle this on, you can see that if I go ahead and click on the Notion app, the enhancer is still visible to me even though I'm actually clicking on the app itself. So again, it doesn't have to be limited to your Notion desktop app itself. It could just be used as part of your Notion enhancer. And this, I think, is actually quite a good feature to use because you can actually just minimize this window and you can actually condense it and almost just hide it in this sort of empty space on the bottom left hand corner that you don't necessarily use. You could just have your Notion enhancer always on top over here as you're using your Notion app. So if you wanted to quickly change different features, you could just go ahead and do it there. So the next feature is emoji sets. So this basically means that we can use a lot more emoji styles than the default ones that are available through the Notion app. Let's just go ahead and turn this on. So as you can see, you get presented with this drop down, and if you scroll down, you can see it's got all of the major apps like Twitter, Apple, Google, Microsoft, Samsung, Facebook even. So you can go through all of these different emoji sets. A really easy and quick way to compare the different emoji sets is simply click on the icon for the page and then seeing the different variations of the emojis that are available. So this is the emoji set that you get when you've selected the Twitter option. Now let's go ahead and select the Apple option. So as you can see straight away that the design of the emoji for the page icon has slightly changed, and that's because this is the Apple version of the emoji. And again, if we go ahead and click that, so you can see this is the icon set that you get when you've selected Apple. Now let's see what it looks like with Google. Now let's go ahead and select Microsoft. Now let's go ahead and select Samsung. Now let's go ahead and select WhatsApp. Now let's go ahead and select Facebook. Now let's go ahead and select Joypixels. Now let's go ahead and select openmoji. Now let's go ahead and select LG. Now let's go ahead and select HTC. And last but not least, let's go ahead and select Mozilla. So I actually quite enjoyed the Joypixels one, but let me know in the comments below which particular emoji set you actually prefer. So the next feature we're going to go through is the calendar scroll. Now this is a really useful feature. What it basically does is that it creates a button on your calendar within your Notion desktop app. When you click on it, it allows you to be able to see your weekly view within the calendar. So let me just go ahead and show you what that looks like. So I've got my blank page in my Notion desktop app. I'm going to go ahead and create a calendar. So this is what a calendar looks like. We'll just go ahead and give it a name. So what we're looking for is a scroll button to appear on the top right hand corner over here. So let's go ahead and turn this feature on and restart the app. So as you can see, we've got this scroll button that's now appeared within your calendar. Now the calendar does have to be a full page calendar, just so you know, rather than an inline calendar. So if I go ahead and now click on this scroll. Now at the time of recording this video, this particular feature wasn't actually working for me. But let me just quickly show you from the GitHub page as to what it should do. So as you can see within your calendar view, you should, when you turn that feature on, get this scroll button appear, and then once you do that, you can actually click on it and it'll show you the current week view within your calendar. So the next section of the Notion Enhancer is the Cherry Cola Dark theme. So let's just go ahead and toggle this on and see what it does to the Notion app. The mind is blown. You can see that it's created this beautiful cherry cola theme, which has completely transformed the look of your Notion desktop app. The next feature we're going to be going through is the code line numbers feature of the Notion Enhancer. So as the name suggests, all this does is actually give you line numbers for any of the code blocks that you've got within your Notion setup. So for instance, as you can see at the moment, within these code blocks in the background, for each of the rows or the lines, there isn't a reference to the line number. So it gives you the option to be able to see line numbers on every single row of your code block. Now, there is an additional feature in here that says that if you've just got this single line of code, do you actually want to be able to show that as being a line number as well? So I actually do prefer to keep this toggled on, because even if it's one row, I think it's still good to know that there's no gaps within your code, within the code block. And there you go, you can see that in front of every single line of code, we've now got this line number, which is absolutely brilliant feature as part of the Notion Enhancer. So now let's move on to the custom insert section of the Notion Enhancer. Now in terms of customization, this particular section actually takes us further deeper into the customizability of the Notion Enhancer, and it's a little bit more hands-on than all of the other sections of the Notion Enhancer. And the reason being that within this section, you can actually link files for additional small tweaks to the Notion desktop app. So let me go ahead and show you how you do that. So the first thing we'll do is we'll toggle this on, and what you'll see is that you're given the option to insert either a CSS insert, and you can go ahead and choose the file from your desktop, or the second one is the client-side JS insert, and again you can click on this and select a file from your desktop and actually upload it into the Notion Enhancer. Now you might be wondering, where do I actually find these custom insert files? Or you might get a little bit put off by this initially, because you might think this is for people that actually know how to write CSS and JS type insert files. Now that's not the case at all. Dracula, when he actually developed this section, actually created a really helpful tweak section on the GitHub page, and you can get to that by simply clicking on this link. So let me just go ahead and do that. It should bring you onto this page, and if you scroll down, you can see that there are already pre-made CSS or JS files for all of these various additional customization options that you can simply go ahead and click into and then download onto your desktop and then upload it into your Notion Enhancer. In this particular video tutorial, I'm not going to go through every single one of these options, but I'm going to select two, and that should give you enough understanding of how to actually use these tweaks. So if you wanted to go ahead and select any of the ones that I don't show you within this particular tutorial, you can go ahead and do do that in your own time. So the two that I'm going to select for this tutorial is the center align table column headers, and the second one I'm going to go through is the sticky table list row. So let's start off with the center align table column headers. So all you have to do is simply click on this. It should then bring you onto this page, and as you can see, it does actually give you a quick demonstration of what it's going to do to your Notion enhancer before the tweak and then after the tweak. Again, this is really helpful so you can see exactly what impact it's going to have on your actual Notion desktop app. This is the CSS that we're going to use, so we're just going to go ahead and copy this. Then we're simply going to open up a text editor, and the way we do that is by simply opening up the menu and then opening up a text file, and you can do that by going into Notepad. Once you've got your Notepad open, you can simply paste the text in there and then you can save the file. Instead of ending up with a .txt, I'm simply going to remove the .txt and change it into a .css, and I'm going to go ahead and save this down. And now let's go ahead and select the file. You can see the option for that file. So it's as simple as that, trying to convert a .txt into a .css file. So now I'm just going to go ahead and open this up, and as you can see, it has now got the .css file format, which is the one that we need to actually upload into our Notion enhancer. So just before I actually relaunch the app to see what this is, let me just quickly open up a table so we can see the difference between what it is now and what it becomes once we've actually applied this change. So I've just opened up my reading and learning resources database table, and as you can see, all of the column headers at the moment are all left aligned. So now let's go ahead and open up the Notion enhancer. Let's relaunch the app, and there you go. As you can see, every single column header has now been center aligned, and that's exactly what that particular tweak was designed to do. So now let's go ahead and look at the second example. So I'm going to go back into the tweaks, and then I'm going to scroll down until I find the sticky table list row. So once again, it gives you a bit of a view as to what it's going to do. So for all of your database tables, it's going to basically make the very top row sticky. So when you scroll all the way down your database table, you can still see the first row at the top of the screen. So a quick point to note, this only applies when you've got the full page database view, and it's not going to work when you've got inline databases. Please make sure that you read some of these descriptions because it tells you pretty much exactly what the code is designed to do. So again, there's another customizable option within this particular code. If you wanted to be able to specify which particular row you actually want to become sticky within your table, you can actually replace this part of the code with this code over here. We're not going to do that as part of this particular tutorial, but all that basically means is you go into the CSS code down here, and then this bit over here where it says nth child 2, you simply go ahead and replace this in your text file with that alternative code that Dragon Walkie has given us over here. So let's just go ahead and copy this CSS code into a new text file. Or you can actually open up the same text file, simply paste all the CSS in there, and this time around you can go ahead and save as, and you can go ahead and make sure that this is saved under a different file name. And then the .css is already there, so we're just going to go ahead and save this. Now I'm going to go back into my Notion app and then open up the Notion enhancer. Now I'm going to go ahead into the CSS insert and then open up the Notion enhancer tweak 2, which is the one that we just saved down, and then click open. Now that we got this file saved, and relaunch the app. So as you can see, very top row, that's now become sticky, and we're able to see it as we scroll down this particular database table. So just to give you an idea of what all of these different tweaks are, I'm just going to go through each of them briefly. So the first one is bigger icons in the calendar view. So let's go ahead and look at this. So as you can see, this is before the tweak. So the icon is quite small, and then you can increase the icon size by applying this particular tweak. The next one is hide backlinks. So as you can see on the top part of your Notion page, normally you have a backlink section, so you can actually hide that completely by applying this particular tweak. The next one is hide board view, add a group. So as you can see, normally you would expect to see an add a group on the right hand side of your Kanban view within your database, but if you apply this particular tweak, then you can hide that option completely. The next tweak is hide board view, hidden columns. So as you can see, normally when you're within the table, you've got this hidden columns section, but you can actually hide that by applying this particular tweak. Hide the calculations table row. So as you can see, at the bottom of every table within your Notion database, you will see a count or a calculations table. You can actually go ahead and completely hide this if you apply this tweak. Hide the callout icon. So as you can see, you can actually go ahead and hide the icon that appears by default when you set up a callout code block within your Notion page. Hide discussions. So if you have any comments on the top of your page within your Notion, then this particular tweak will hide that. So you won't be able to see those comments at the top of the page. Hide the new board row. So normally within your database table, you have the option to add a new row at the bottom. This particular tweak hides that option. So you have a very clean view. Hide the new page icon. So on the bottom left-hand corner of your Notion desktop app, you normally have a add new page button. So you can actually go ahead and completely remove that to give you a much more cleaner user interface. Hide the new table row. So as you can see, within every table in your Notion database, you'll have the option to be able to add a new row at the bottom. Using this tweak, you can actually completely remove that. Hide the plus table column. Again, every time you have a database table within your Notion setup, normally you have a plus icon on the right hand side to be able to add a new column. This particular tweak completely hides that, so it gives you another clean interface. Hide the new gallery button. So when you have a database in a gallery view, normally you have this section where you can actually add another gallery to your database. So you can use this particular tweak to completely remove that. Left align images. So every time you add an image within your Notion page, normally they're all center aligned. You can use this particular tweak to left align them. Minify, breadcrumbs, and topbar buttons. So on the top of every single page in Notion, normally you have these breadcrumbs. They can get quite long and take up a lot of space on the top part of your desktop app. You can use this tweak to basically be able to minimize those. So you end up with a lot more empty space on the top part of your Notion desktop app. Remove arrows on linked pages and databases. So as you can see, so normally when you have a linked database within your Notion setup, you can tell that it's a linked database or a page by the arrow icon that appears at the start of the word. You can actually go ahead and completely remove that to give you a much more cleaner look. Remove icons from table column headers. Normally you have icons by default for certain column names, for certain column headers within your Notion database. Now, if you don't want those to be appearing, then you can go ahead and use this tweak. So you'll end up with just the column header names without the icons. Remove type for command. So normally within your Notion page, whenever you're on a new row, it actually gives you this particular message, and you can go ahead and remove that completely by using this particular tweak. So it gives you a very clean, sort of almost like a Microsoft Word type view. Remove decreasing side padding for board. So as you can see, normally when you set up a database table in your Notion setup, you have a lot of empty space on the left-hand side of the table itself. You can go ahead and use this tweak to completely remove that padding. Remove decreasing side padding for tables. So much like the database, you can go ahead and do the same thing for tables by removing all the empty space on the left-hand side. Scroll past the end of the page. So normally when you're in your Notion app, if you reach the end of the text on the page, it doesn't allow you to go any further below that point. So if you want to be able to type down here, you almost have no option but to stick with this particular view. But if you wanted to be able to type down here and have this text further up, just like how it's shown in this page, you can actually use this tweak to allow you to be able to keep scrolling down, even though there is no longer any text down below. Shrink padding on code blocks. So when you have a code block within your Notion setup, normally before the first row and after the last row, you have a lot of padding that's given to the code block itself. You can go ahead and use this tweak to remove that completely. Smaller page icons. Just like the name suggests, if you have a page icon within your Notion setup, then you can go ahead and actually reduce the size of this so it ends up being alongside the name of the page as opposed to being on top. Smaller table column header icons. So within your Notion tables, normally when you have these default column headers, you end up with these checkbox icons or a clock icon. You can actually use this particular tweak to actually reduce the size of those. Last but not least, table columns below 100 pixels. So the next section of the Notion Enhancer we're going to go through is the dark plus theme section. So let's go ahead and enable this. When you turn this on, you'll notice that there's another option that appears, which is the primary color option. You can actually go ahead and change this to a different color if you want, but for the purposes of this tutorial, I'm going to keep it to the default setting. Now let's go ahead and relaunch the app. So as you can see, this has now turned the Notion app into a true sort of dark plus theme. Again, another really cool addition to the type of themes you can have within your Notion desktop app. It actually looks really good. And let's move on to the next one, which is the Dracula theme. Let's go ahead and turn this on. So as you can see, another really cool theme that you can add to your Notion desktop app. This is what the calendar view looks like. Really nice theme. So the next feature of the Notion Enhancer allows us to be able to bypass the preview screen of a page within your Notion desktop app. So let me just quickly demonstrate what that looks like before I actually turn this feature on. So let's say we were in this particular database and we clicked on this. You can see every time you click a page to open up within your Notion desktop app, by default, the page will open up into this sort of preview screen. And I know a lot of people, including myself, find this view a little bit annoying because you end up almost always trying to expand this into a full page view. Now what this particular feature allows you to do is to be able to bypass this preview step. So let's go ahead and now turn this on. So now we've got this particular feature open. Let's go ahead and go back to the page, and now let's go ahead and try and click on this page again. So as you can see, this time round, I didn't get the option of the preview screen, and the Notion Enhancer actually opened up this particular screen directly in a full page view. I personally absolutely love this feature of the Notion Enhancer, and is one of the main reasons that I actually use it. So well done to the developers for actually coming up with this feature. Hopefully over time, the actual official Notion desktop app will incorporate this particular feature, or at least give the users the option to be able to do this by themselves without having to rely on the Notion Enhancer. And this saves so much time when you're flicking through so many different pages and you're just kind of navigating through different parts of your Notion desktop app. It just opens straight into this full page view. It's just absolutely brilliant. The next part of the Notion Enhancer allows you to be able to enter into a focus mode. And what that basically means is that it will hide the title bar and the menu bar on the top part of your Notion desktop app. So let's go ahead and see that in action. It also does give you the option to be able to add padding to the bottom of the page if you want to. So now let's go ahead and relaunch the app. So as you can see, when you actually go ahead and hide the menu on the top left-hand side and you move your cursor away from that menu, you'll notice that all the toolbars and the menu options at the top are completely hidden. And when you move your cursor away, it just gives you this absolutely clean focus mode view, so you can completely immerse yourself in the content of your page without having to worry about sort of the different menus at the top. So again, it's a really good feature of the Notion Enhancer that allows you to be able to do that and puts you in charge of how you want to be able to experience the Notion desktop app. So the next section of the Notion Enhancer allows you to be able to choose from a huge range of custom fonts. So all you have to do is turn on the toggle. So let me show you how you can actually go ahead and use this particular feature. So let's say you wanted to be able to use sans serif font. So let's say we're going to be using the Times New Roman font. So you need to make sure that the same font is actually saved on your PC. So I know that the Times New Roman font is actually on my PC. So now I'm going to go ahead and relaunch the app. And there you go. You can see that the page title has now turned into a Times Roman theme. And the same goes with database name. You can see the various bits of text within the pages itself also actually changed into that particular font. Even the properties section on the right hand corner and also the menu bar, everything has now turned into a Times New Roman theme. So let's say this time around, instead of selecting the Times New Roman font, you want to select a completely different font. So the best way that I find that you can do that is by simply opening up your Microsoft Word and then going into your font drop down. So this will give you a list of all of the installed fonts on your PC. And generally, if the font is within this selection, that means you can simply take the name from here and you can put it into your Notion Enhancer. So let's just go ahead and randomly select one from here and see what that looks like. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and choose this one, which is Broadway. So let's just go ahead and copy and paste this into my Notion Enhancer. And now I'm gonna go ahead and relaunch the app. And there you go, it's as easy as that. So as you can see, pretty much most of the text, headings, anything that's got text on it has pretty much changed. So again, this is an extremely powerful feature within the Notion desktop app. Of course, you don't have to be restricted to the fonts that are pre-installed. You can actually download custom fonts that are free from the internet onto your PC and then install them on your PC, and then they should appear within this list. So let me just quickly show you how you can download custom fonts and import those into your Notion setup. So I'll simply go onto a web browser and I'll type in free custom fonts and then just kind of go through these websites and see ones that are free. Why don't we just go ahead and click on this one, and then you can kind of go through them and select which one you actually like. Why don't we go ahead and select movies one and select the Jedi one. It'll ask you to download the file, so let's go ahead and do that. Once it's downloaded the file, it should open it up in your PC and unzip the file. Once you've done that, all you need to do is simply go ahead and select one of the fonts and then just go ahead and right click and install the font. So we'll go ahead and click install, and that should have installed the font onto your PC. Now if I go in here and I start typing in star, so as you can see, the Star Jedi has now become available as a font that I can actually select within any of my applications on my PC. So it's not just restricted to Word. So now let's go ahead and just copy this, and we'll open up the Enhancer and we'll scroll down to the font section, replace the name with the Star Jedi, and then let's relaunch the app. And there you go, you can see that all of the fonts within your Notion app have been changed into that custom Star Wars type font. So again, you can play around with this as much as you want. You can go ahead and find the perfect font and be able to easily import it into your Notion desktop app and be able to use it as you please. So the next feature in the Notion Enhancer is the Gameish theme. So let's go ahead and turn this on. Now let's restart the app to see what this one looks like. And there you go, as you can see, it's turned the Notion desktop app into this beautiful color, and it's not only just changed the colors, but it's also changed the default font to this font style as well, which kind of goes with the theme. The next section we're going to be going through is the Indentation Lines feature of the Notion Enhancer. So let's turn this on. Then you should see a number of different options that you can choose. You can choose the style of the indentation. We can either have a solid, dash, dot, or soft. So I'll leave that as solid. The next, you can determine whether you can see this with bullet points, numbered lists, to-do lists, or toggles. You can select either all of them, or you can have it on for a specific option. So in my case, I'll just leave all of them selected as turned on. Now let's go ahead and relaunch the app. So as you can see, within these two bullet points, we've now got this solid black line that appears every time there is an indentation when you're using a bullet point. The next section of the Notion Enhancer is the Littlepig dark theme. Now let's go ahead and turn this on, and now let's relaunch the app. And there you go, it's turned it into this beautiful theme, and it's also changed the font to go with the theme as well. You can see this colored headings as well. If I go into the calendar view, you can see what the calendar looks like with the theme, and then generally that's what the page looks like as well. The next section of the Notion Enhancer is the Littlepig light theme. So let's go ahead and see what that looks like. And there you go. So we've got the same fonts, but it's just a lighter version of the same theme. The next section of the Notion Enhancer is the Material Ocean theme. This is a dark theme as well. So let's go ahead and turn this on and see what this looks like. And there you go. That's what the theme looks like within your Notion desktop app. So it's beautiful font and color combination. The next theme within the Notion Enhancer is the neutral dark theme. Let's go ahead and turn this on and see what it looks like. And there you go, that's the theme. Let me show you a few different pages. Now let's see what an article looks like. Very nice font, very clean. The next theme within the Notion Enhancer is the Night Shift theme. Now let's go ahead and select this. Now let's relaunch the app. And there you go, this is the theme. It sort of combined the dark and light theme with this beautiful font color. The next section within the Notion Enhancer is the Notion icon. This basically allows us to be able to use custom icon sets directly within Notion. All you have to do is click on this, and then you simply have to go ahead and select the file that has your custom icons in it. To be able to do this, you do actually need to download some free custom icons or pay for some and then download those to your PC and then upload them right over here. The next section within the Notion Enhancer is the Outliner section. This basically creates a table of contents within your Notion page. Let's go ahead and enable this. You should get two options. One is the indentation line, the other one is the full height. Now, I couldn't quite get this to work properly, but if you managed to figure this out, then please do let me know in the comments below. The same goes for panel size. I'm not quite sure what this is used for, but if you do know, then please do let me know in the comments below. The next section is the Pastel dark theme. Let's just go ahead and select this. Let's relaunch the app to see what it looks like. And there you go. That's what this dark theme looks like. Again, it's really beautiful, worth checking out. So the next feature of the Notion Enhancer is the property layout. So this allows you to be able to auto collapse all the page properties that usually push down the page content. Let's go ahead and toggle this on. Now let's relaunch the app. So as you can see, all of the properties that usually appear on the top part of the page have now been collapsed into this toggle box. You can go ahead and click this and it will display all of the different empty properties that you've got. And you can go ahead and toggle this again and it will hide all of these properties. Really useful if you want to be able to get to your content on the page, which normally gets hidden by all of these properties. Now, Notion has actually released an update which does kind of make this particular feature a little bit redundant, because you can go into the three dots on the top right hand corner and then you can go into customize page and then you can go ahead and customize the properties, and you can basically go ahead and hide all of those, or you can display those. So the next feature is right to left. Now this is mainly used by people that are using Notion in a language that actually writes from right to left, as opposed to English, which is actually left to right. For example, if you looked at this language here, you can see that you would actually read this from right to left, as opposed to English, which you would read from left to right. The next feature is scroll to top. This is quite a useful feature to have, so let me just go ahead and toggle this on. And it does give you a couple of options. So one is whether you want the scrolling to be smooth or not, and then also at what point you want the button to actually show from the bottom of the page. You can either say this within pixels or you can do as a percentage. I'm just going to leave this as default. Now let's go ahead and relaunch the app and see what it looks like. Let's scroll down. So as you can see, as you scroll down the page, you've got this arrow that's now appeared on the bottom right hand corner. So if I now wanted to go back to the top of the page, I can obviously scroll through my mouse, or you can actually click on this arrow and it will take you right to the top. Really powerful feature. Definitely recommend using this if you are using the Notion Enhancer. Obviously this works really well if you have even longer page. So let's go ahead and look at one of the articles. We'll open up this page. Now let's say we were reading this article, we went all the way down. Now if you want to go to the top of the page, you simply go ahead and click this arrow and voila. The next feature is the side panel feature. So this basically adds a side panel to the Notion desktop app. So let's go ahead and toggle this on. Now let's relaunch the app to see what it looks like. Okay, so I couldn't quite get this particular feature to work, but if you managed to get this to work, then please do put it in the comments below and let me know how to use it. The next feature is the top bar icon. So this basically replaces the top bar buttons with the icons. So let's go ahead and see what this looks like. So we're looking for some changes to these icons in the top section. Now let's go ahead and relaunch the app. And there you go. You can see that now we've got the share button, we've got this tick button, and we've also got this star button to save the page as a favorite. The next feature of the Notion Enhancer is to truncate the table titles. So if you have a long title for the table, it will basically truncate the title. But if you wanted to be able to see it in full, you can basically hover over it to see the full title. Let's just go ahead and see what this looks like. You can see that I'm not able to see the full column header description in the title itself, but when I hover over it, you can see that it gives me the short description in this column as a message display just below the actual column header. This is really useful and a much quicker way of actually going through large amounts of columns that do actually have names that are wider than the actual width of the column, and it just simply allows you to be able to quickly see the full name of the column itself without having to click into it and then being able to see what the full name is. So the second last feature within the Notion Enhancer is actually the weekly view. Again, this is a really powerful feature of the Notion Enhancer. Let's go ahead and turn this on and let's see it in action. Now let's go into the calendar and let's go ahead and add new view. Let's click calendar and we'll name this weekly. Let's go ahead and create. And there you go. As you can see, it is now showing me just the weekly view within the calendar section. And the last feature of the Notion Enhancer is to be able to add a word counter to your Notion page itself. So let's just go ahead and turn this on. Now let's go ahead and relaunch the app. And as you can see, we've now got this additional section on the page itself. So it tells us that this page has 783 words, number of characters, number of sentences, blocks, how long it might take for us to read this page, and how long it might take for us to actually read this page out loud. And there you have it, guys. That was every single feature that you can currently find within the Notion Enhancer add-on. Question for you is, which one of these features in the Notion Enhancer did you find the most helpful? And if you weren't using the Notion Enhancer previous to watching this video, then let me know if this video helped convince you to actually start using it. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to subscribe for more content just like this. And if there's any other videos that you want me to make, then please do let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you in the next video.